Hey everyone, and welcome to our Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful message that sits right at the heart of the Christmas story. It's a story that, it doesn't begin in some fancy palace, but in a stable. And that right there tells you something, doesn't it? It suggests that God's most amazing work often happens in the places we'd least expect. And this right here, this single verse from the Gospel of Luke, is really the anchor for everything we're going to talk about. This is the big announcement from heaven that literally changed the course of human history. So today, we're going to unpack what that really means and why it still matters so much thousands of years later. So, here's our game plan. First up, we'll set the scene and look at the historical events that kicked everything off. Then, we'll get into that incredible announcement. After that, we're going to dig into the two core lessons of the story. And finally, we'll talk about how we can actually apply this good news in our own lives. All right, let's jump right in. What's so wild about this story is that it doesn't start with some big flashy miracle or a flash of light in the sky. Nope, it actually starts with paperwork. A government order. I mean, can you even imagine the scale of this? The most powerful man in the world, Emperor Augustus, basically says, all right, everyone in the entire Roman world, stop what you're doing, we're taking a census. This was a huge political and administrative move, all about taxation and, keeping control over millions of people. And because of this order from on high, a carpenter named Joseph had to pack up and travel. He didn't have a choice. It was the law. And he had to bring Mary, his fiancée, who was very, very pregnant, on this difficult 90-mile journey to his ancestral hometown, Bethlehem. And when the moment finally came, there was no red carpet, no special suite waiting for them, none of that. The town was packed because of the census, so they ended up in a place meant for animals. The birth of this baby, the one called Savior, happened in just about the humblest, most overlooked circumstances you can imagine. So the birth itself was super quiet, almost hidden from the world. But the announcement? Whoa, that was a totally different story. And here's what's so fascinating. Who got to hear about it first? It wasn't the emperor, and it wasn't the high and mighty religious leaders in Jerusalem. Nope, the very first birth announcement went to shepherds. And you gotta understand, in that society, shepherds were not at the top of the social ladder. They were just regular guys working the night shift out in the fields, probably had no idea that the biggest event in history was unfolding just a short walk away. And then, bam, an angel of the Lord shows up, and this brilliant light, the glory of God, is all around them. I mean, they must have been terrified, but the angel's first words are, hey, don't be afraid. And then he delivers this incredible message. And listen to this part. It's good news that will bring great joy for all the people. Not just for them, not for some select few, for everyone. And just when they thought it couldn't get any more intense, the sky just explodes with this massive choir of angels, all praising God. It's like heaven itself couldn't contain its joy. It just drives home the point that what happened in that little stable was a massive, cosmic event, even if pretty much no one on Earth knew it yet. So what's the takeaway from all this? I mean, the story itself is amazing, for sure, but the devotional that we're digging into here pulls out two really crucial lessons that sit at the very core of it all. Okay, lesson number one is all about that very specific word the angel used, Savior. Think about it. He wasn't announced as a new king who would fix their politics or a general who would lead an army. He was announced as a savior. His mission wasn't political, it was deeply spiritual. It was all about rescuing humanity from its deepest problem, sin, and bringing people back to a right relationship with God. And here's why that is so, so important. Most of the time, what do we look for? We want quick fixes for our problems, right? Help with money, with health, with relationships. But this message says our biggest, most fundamental need is actually spiritual rescue. And this salvation, it's not something we can earn or achieve on our own. It's a gift that offers true, lasting peace with God. All right, the second big lesson is about who received this message. And this is huge. God could have sent that angel to the palace in Rome or the temple in Jerusalem. He totally bypassed all the centers of power, wealth, and religious authority. Instead, he chose to reveal this glorious world-changing news to a group of humble, overlooked shepherds. This choice tells us something absolutely fundamental about how God works. Think of it this way. Pride is like a wall that we build up, one that creates a distance between us and God. But humility? Humility is like an open door. When we approach God without ego or a sense of entitlement, we position ourselves to experience his presence and glory, just like the shepherds did. Okay, so that's the what. But what about the so what? How do we take all this and actually live it out? This isn't just an old story to admire from a distance. The devotional gives us some really clear, actionable steps. To apply that first lesson, it's a pretty straightforward process. It starts by admitting that our real need is deeper than just wanting a little help with life circumstances. From there, it's about trusting in Jesus for that spiritual rescue, for forgiveness. And then you just get to rest in the incredible peace that comes from being right with God. And for that lesson on humility, the application is just as practical. It's about taking on the posture of the shepherds. First, come to God with a humble and open heart. Second, listen for his voice, not just in the big moments, but in the ordinary and unexpected places in your life. And third, be ready to share the good news you've received with other people. If you had to boil this entire message down to its ultimate conclusion, it's this. The good news of a Savior, when you receive it with humility, doesn't just bring you a little bit of temporary happiness, it brings a deep, lasting peace. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If God revealed the greatest news in history in a humble stable and to a group of overlooked shepherds, it's worth asking ourselves, isn't it? Where might we find his work, his message, his good news? In the quiet, humble, and overlooked parts of our own lives today.